Hi everyone, I hope you're okay. Thanks for joining us today on a new webinar for people interested in the PMO analyst role. And why would you not be? Such a great job. Yeah, today what I'm going to be doing is taking you through is quite a jam-packed session actually. So hopefully you'll be there making some notes or taking some screenshots and stuff like that. But you will be able to access it afterwards as well. So if there's anything on here that you like the look of, we'll be able to get that to you afterwards as well. So it's great that people have signed up, and we've also had quite a few questions and slums as people were signing up, which is great to see. So lots of different types of people on here today. But what I want you to we do use a chat. I'm more than happy keeping an eye on the chat as we go through this. And any questions that come up as you're listening to this, I'm more than happy to take them. I'm hoping that you get the most out of this, obviously, about the whole role around PMO analysts. So please do feel free to get into the chat. Anything that I might reference as well. I've got Jennifer here with me. Jennifer will be able to point you in the right direction to things on the website as well. So lots going on. So let's crack on, shall we? So PMO Learning. Let's just, before we go into the session, just to let you know, in case you're not already aware, is we're PMO Learning, and that's what we do. We do learning for people that are interested in PMO education, professional development, a number of different courses and things that are all targeted and aimed at people like yourself that are interested in working in PMO, or indeed are already working in PMO. Yeah, so it's just things that you can have a look at in terms of your professional development. And what makes us slightly different from lots of other training organisations is that because we are so focused in what we're doing around the whole PMO space, we not only offer certification-based courses, but we also run courses that are created by ourselves, getting into those nitty-gritty areas of PMO that we know that a lot of people have challenges in when they're working in this space. Oh, and by the way, our trainers are also people that have worked in this space as well, so they absolutely understand exactly what the kind of challenges and things that you're going through, and hopefully helping you to overcome them with some training. So let's go. So the purpose for this particular session then, and we do lots of things around the whole PMO space, and I'll talk to you about where you can access some of that stuff later. But for this particular session, we wanted you to be able to understand and get some really essential insights about this new role. And I'm conscious that some of you may not even be in the role yet, and also people that have been working in the role of PMO analyst already. And there is something for all of you out of today's session. So, yeah, let's have a look. Let's have a look what we're going to be going through. So today is all about trying to understand what the first steps are. But we also need to understand the kind of landscape that we're working within, so the whole PMO space. Then we're going to get really into the PMO analyst role itself and starting to decode some of that. Then we're going to actually look at the role itself in terms of you being in the role. So what it is that you're doing day in, day out. We'll also talk a little bit about, well, what do you do when you first start out as a PMO analyst? What can you expect when you start to get into that role? And then, of course, it's about the ongoing role that you're doing. This is something that you'll be hopefully getting better and better and better at as you work through your career in PMO. So before I crack on into the detail, and I know people are going to ask, so I always get asked this, if you do want to watch it again and you do want the slide decks, and there's a lot of detail in some of these that you might want to pore over a little bit, get onto the website, preferably not now, get onto the website, click the keep in touch, and that will give you a form to fill out, and we will make sure that you get absolutely everything from today's session. Okay, so right, let's look at the first steps then. So what we wanted to do is think about the actual critical initial things that you are thinking about as you start this role of a PMO analyst. And as I said, this is not just for people that are starting a new role. Hopefully people that are already in the role but wanting to know a little bit more about it might also recognise this. So first steps first, understanding what's expected of that PMO analyst role. Every PMO is different. The reason why every PMO is different is because every organization is different, and every organization has different projects and programs running, different prioritization of those projects. And therefore, the PMO that is supporting that delivery of change will also be very specific for that particular organization, which in turn means that the people that are working within that PMO will also have a very specific role that they're doing. So the job title might be PMO Analyst, it might be Project Coordinator, it might be Project Support Officer, lots of different titles for essentially this role. And we will get into the details about what this role is. But when you're first starting out in that PMO Analyst role, it's always good to really understand what's expected of the PMO Analyst role in the organization that you're working in, because that then leads on to understanding what's expected of you in that particular role. It's like anything, you start working in a new organization, you have a job specification or a job profile. It's all very nice and neat, and it talks about all the things that you're asked to do. But for each organization, because that PMO is different and because that analyst role is different, you could be walking into a role that you have done some kind of project supporting type stuff before. This is what my role was now. My role was then, and here it is now, and it could be very, very different. And the reasons why it's very different, as we said, the PMO is very different, but also there are different ways of supporting projects. Some PMOs support in certain ways. They could be more of a kind of controlling type PMO. So a lot of their services and things that they do are very much around reporting and making sure people are following the methodology and do a lot of assurance and review type work. Or it can be a PMO where it's very much a kind of coaching and teaching and helping people that are working in the change organization to do better at their roles. So again, it's about being able to understand what's expected of you in the role. So what is it that you're wanting me to be doing is sometimes very different to what the expectation might be set when you go to an interview or when you're first trying to understand and navigate your way around in a new role. Which means that you then move on to the second bit of it, which is really when you're getting into that role, is understanding who you're working for and who you're reporting to, because that has a big bearing on the kind of role that you're performing and who you're performing it for. So sometimes you can be working for a PMO manager, but you could actually be reporting to a head of IT or a head of project management or a different person in the organization completely. You can be working for a project manager in a project team, but actually you report to a PMO manager. So there's different ways in which these things are structured within organizations that have a bearing on the role that you'll be doing. And like anything, we always need to know who we're working for, what's their expectations of us, so we're in order that, you know, we can be performing exactly as they would like us to be performing. So understanding where in the organization you're also sitting is also crucial. Again, with PMOs, you can find them in different places. You can have a centralized PMO that sits very much across all of the things and sometimes known as an enterprise level PMO, or it could be PMOs that are very much at the project level and that there's individual PMOs that are working and supporting those programs. It could be a portfolio level. So you're looking across the entirety of what's going on in terms of the organization of all the projects and programs. So it's who you're working for, where you're reporting for, and understanding exactly where you're sitting in the business. This all has a bearing on the role that you will be performing as a PMO analyst. And then finally, is understanding what project management is all about. Really obvious. However, as a PMO person, again, depending on where you're working and what kind of PMO, it might not just be project management, it could be program management, it could be portfolio management, and it becomes something called the Center of Excellence type work. And I'm going to get into a bit more detail of that. But these are the crucial 4 things that if you're thinking about working in this space, just starting out in this space, these are some of the things that help you settle, that help you understand getting the lay of the land, okay? So let's just have an understanding really of the PMO landscape and that bigger picture, okay? So there's 2 main things that you need to really understand around PMOs, and that there's actually probably 4 main types. Lots of variations on a theme, as we said, each PMO is different, but there are generally 4 types, okay? Which project, program, portfolio, and center of excellence. There's also, from what you also need to know, is that there are different services that can be offered by PMOs, okay? And again, it depends on the organization, and the projects that that are being delivered will have a bearing on the types of things that you will be doing in terms of your tasks and activities based on the services that that PMO may be offering, okay? So let's just bring it down then to a deeper level. So what are those types of projects? Here's the definitions, just so, again, we're all on the same page today. We've got the project office, which is generally a temporary office that's set up to support projects. Why is it temporary? Because projects they have a very definite start and end. When that project ends, that project office closed down. Again, a temporary office for a program office as well, because again, programs have a start and an eventual end, sometimes bigger, sometimes lots of projects within those programs mean that that program can go on for a long period of time, but it is in fact a temporary type of PMO. And then you have something called the portfolio office, which is more of a permanent office, so something that is there all the time because it's overlooking all the projects and all the programs that are going on within that organization. So these are the three main types in terms of working with, what kind of PMO you can be working within. And then we talked about something called the Center of Excellence. Now, this one is all about the things that go into creating the standards that get put into place, the processes that are in place, the kind of governance frameworks and things that are in place right across their organization. They can be offering skills training, process training, reusing knowledge, creating knowledge. All of that kind of stuff is generally under an umbrella called Center of Excellence. And just to make it a little bit more complicated, in most organizations, if you're not large enough, you will not have a separate Center of Excellence. So sometimes you'll see a portfolio office that does some of that Center of Excellence work. Yeah. Or you may have a program office that's trying to do some of the Center of Excellence type stuff. Yeah. So generally, 4 types, that's what they do. That's what they're there to do, support projects, programs, or the portfolio of work, or thinking about the standards and the processes and all of those kind of things that every project and program will be utilizing and following as they deliver. Okay. Second thing that you mentioned were PMO services. Let's get into a little bit more detail on that. And there's 2 things that you can look at here and related to training courses to do with PMO, which is great. First one you're looking at is the PMO services that are detailed in P3O. P3O is the Portfolio Program and Project Office, and that's the training course that comes in Foundation and Practitioner. But the foundation level goes into some of the PMO services that can be found within a PMO. So you can get an idea here about what we mean by services. Yeah. So what generally happens in most PMOs is that they will have a set of services that they offer to either a project, a program, a portfolio. And these are within each of one of these services will obviously be a number of different tasks, processes, frameworks, a whole variety of things, templates, you name it, will sit under that particular service offering. Now, the reason why it's more of a PMO service approach. Now, if you go back in time in PMO, you will have found that a lot of it used to be about supporting and administration. Supporting and administration still goes on today. Projects are always going to have a lot of administration associated with them. But what's happened in more recent times to get away from this badge of we only create, do admin support, is a model where actually we ask the organization, what do you need in order to support the delivery of projects, programs, and portfolios? Senior management think about what it is that they need. The PMO can offer services around some of those core areas. So, for example, if you're working in PMO today, you'll probably recognize that there is always reporting. Doesn't matter if you're project, program, or portfolio level, there's always going to be some form of reporting required as a service from the PMO to various people that are interested in finding out what's going on in the project. That's why you can see there's reporting bottom left as a PMO service. So those are some of the standard ones that you see within the P3O, okay? But just to balance that off, there's also PMO services on another qualification, which is the Essentials for PMO Analysts. And these services that you're seeing here on that list, very similar, some of the crossover points, come from the PMO Service Catalogue, which is one of the textbooks for that particular course, alongside the PMO Competency Framework, which is also one of the textbooks for that course. Together, they cover a number of different services that can be offered by the PMO, and therefore give you an idea about what type of activities the PMO analysts will be doing in some of those core service areas. Okay, so that's the kind of laying the groundwork. But just generally, just because we've just talked about two courses, let me just tell you really quickly the differences between those. So if you're interested in professional development right now, P3O Foundation is a good one to do if you want to understand about PMOs and why they're in organizations and why they get set up and how they get set up and all of that kind of good stuff. The Essentials for PMO Analysts is about you doing the role as a PMO analyst. Yeah, so this is very much about the practicalities of the PMO analyst role in terms of the tasks and the activities that you're doing. Yeah, so both of them, together, have a great place in a PMO professional's life because they're both qualifications that are doing different things. Okay, if you want to know more about those two, bit more detail, there's a full syllabus, insights on both of those courses, so you can get a feel for what's ever covered on those courses. Okay, is everybody still with me? You still okay? Am I hitting what it is that you thought you were going to be listening today? If there's any questions, like I said, just drop them into chat. Okay, let's get into some detail then about the role itself. So the PMO analyst role is there to support projects, programs, and portfolio managers and their teams in the delivery, including coordination, planning, control, reporting, analysis, and insights. Okay, so broad term based on, whatever kind of PMO it is that you're doing, but you're there to support, and it's supporting the managers and the teams. And there's just a list of the different types of things that you can be supporting in. Okay, top level. Okay, we're obviously going to go into a bit more detail on this session about what kind of supporting activities you can be doing. Let's look to the PMO Competency Framework. So I showed you the book. That's one of the core texts for the Essentials for PMO Analyst course. And in there is a role profile. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel here, because actually that role profile split into 5 different areas gives you that kind of top level insight into the expectations of what a PMO analyst can do, could do, not necessarily should do, because again, it depends on the organization you're working in and what it is that they require from that role. So that very first slide that I put up there about understanding the PMO analyst role, that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to tell you about the general role of PMO analyst. However, within your organization, there may be tweaks, there may be other things that get added in, things that get taken out of this definition that's here on the screen right now. But 5 different areas. So you can see the big one there, which is providing P3M services. Now, P3M just stands for project, programs, and portfolios. So I don't need to keep saying it to you today. But essentially, it's the services that are required across all of those 3. And you can see there, just as an example, are some of those services and the kind of things that are expected at the analyst role. Now, if you were to look at the P3O again and look at the Essentials for PMO Analysts, you'll see a whole list of different services, and not all of those will apply to you. Again, it becomes because of the organization and the types of projects and programs you're being delivered. So these are just some of the examples, but to give you that idea that you're supporting is actually going to be could be quite wide in terms of the kind of activities that you're doing. That's what makes this PMO analyst role so interesting, so exciting, so challenging, so frustrating. There is a lot of things that you can be doing to really help and support not only your project managers, project teams, but the wider organization do better at delivering change. There's a bit there about the reporting side of it, because it's huge. It's a huge aspect of the role. if you're coming into a PMO analyst role and you're not somebody that's particularly confident with the whole kind of numbers and the spreadsheets and the pulling together different formattings of different dashboards and things like that, you may find that it's not a role for you. It is a big part of the job. And yes, some of the stuff can you learn as you get into the role, because again, every organization likes to do this stuff differently and they use different tools to do so. But if it's not something that really floats your boat in terms of, I really want to get into the nitty-gritty of, well, why is this project, not delivering on time? And I want to be able to get into some of the detail around the data. What's the data telling me? It's all of that kind of stuff that is a really big element to the analyst role. The clue's in the title. It's the analyst side of the role. But it's not the only side of the role. Yes, so there's that technical data-y type part of the role. But there's a big part of it is actually about supporting people. This is where the things like the education, the training, the mentoring, the coaching, the helping people to learn about some of the new aspects that they may have to be doing on their projects. It's that bit where you're trying to help somebody that is just not wanting your help, somebody that is always late with getting data and information to you. How can I influence these people? How can I do it better? There's a big people side to the job, and people look to the PMO as being that kind of split personality, in that you do a lot of people related type stuff in terms of building relationships. And then the next hat you might put on is that actually I'm going to pull out some data and do some spreadsheet type work. It really is using both sides of the brain, as it were. And then it's also a role where you can go many places depending on what kind of services it is, because there's some PMOs now, certainly at that kind of portfolio level, they're doing a lot more at the kind of higher levels of the organization, working in terms of strategy, implementation, and working out, where are the links between the deliveries that we're doing in relation to strategy. So getting more into some of the kind of business workings, and not just about projects and programs, but understanding the business and how that's ticking. And then there's that final one there, which is about the role of a service manager. Now, you'll be interested in that, like, oh, a service manager in terms of a PMO role, how does that work? That's one of the core things around the Essentials for PMO Analyst course as well. Because one of the things that many people are doing now with their PMOs in their organizations, we know that it's PMO service driven. And what a lot of the analysts do is take on the responsibilities for a particular PMO service. So, for example, a role of a service manager for one organization may be that we do a lot around the benefits management. And that whole process from beginning to end, in terms of benefits mapping right through to benefits realization, it needs somebody within the PMO to make sure that it is being continuously improved, that we review it, that we look at how it's working within the organization and tweak it. So it's about somebody taking ownership for a particular area or a particular PMO service, a particular interest that you may have, or something that really, that you really like to get into the nitty-gritty of. So it's a really varied role. You can see, and this is, I suppose, the second part to this bit, is that you're not only supporting the actual delivery, you will have responsibilities to the PMO manager in the delivery of the PMO getting better at what it does as well. So a lot of stuff going on. I mean, I'm sure you'll agree that it's just it's a great role to get involved in. And that's why a lot of people move away from, I don't actually want to be a project manager, because this role and being able to go up to PMO manager, PMO director, head of project management is just as exciting, because of the different kinds of things that you can get into, and certainly keeps the old grey matter going. But with any role, it's not just about being able to do things like produce a benefits mapping plan, or, to pull together a dashboard, or to pull together the risk register for a program. Those are our kind of like day-to-day technical things that you can be doing. But it also has to be an underpinning of knowledge, skills, and behaviours for a PMO analyst, yeah? And we would be remiss if we didn't talk about some of those things as well. And again, on the Essentials for PMO Analyst course, we're using the core textbooks around the PMO Service Catalogue and the Competency Framework to get us into those kind of details. So for example, this is from the Competency Framework, and this highlights the top level kind of knowledge areas that a PMO analyst, to do the role competently, to do it well, should really have these components of knowledge. And these are underpinning what you're doing in your day-to-day activity. So for example, an easy one, who to contact and for what? Obvious. A lot of people come to the PMO because they know people. They know how to get things done. If they can't do it, they'll find somebody who can. They know where to go in order to be able to get meeting rooms. They know where to go in order to be able to buy a new piece of equipment for the project. They know how to get around the procurement rules and so on. You get that idea. But these are all the things that make this role so dynamic. You know, it's so many different pieces of knowledge that go into helping you to do your role and perform it well. You've got obvious things in there, like the methods. Yeah, we get fixated on methods, that we do our professional development around. Have you done your Prince 2? Have you done your MOP? You done your MSP? These are all the things that you may be utilizing in some of the PMO services you're offering. And there's certainly things that you will need to know about in terms of if we're using a Prince 2-led method. Not all organizations actually call it that, but they utilize bits and pieces from Prince 2. You'll see other things in there which are more dominant, becoming more dominant, about the whole kind of lean and agile approaches. So using things like Scrum, or using the kind of SAFe, which is the kind of the enterprise level kind of agile approaches. Different things come in and out. We have flavors of the month. Organizations think, well, actually, there's some good elements in some of the change management practices. We want to put those into our method. Again, the PMO has to be learning about some of this stuff, and it can come in at you. You can be stuff that you're aware of that's on the horizon. You can start to learn about it now. Sometimes things just get thrown in and say, actually, this project team have been using this particular tool. It's been great for them. Let's think about rolling it out across some of the other project teams. Straight away, what tool? You're going to have to learn about that. Not only are we going to learn about it, we've got to learn about how people are going to use it, how it fits in with all the other systems within our organization, how it fits into our method, and so on. Yeah, you can see straight away how there's so many bits of knowledge that can come at you. So things that you're going to be continuing to learn, and things that you will have in place, that you will need in place in order to be able to do your job well. So there's a lot of stuff there. So you can see why I put on there about why you might want to go and join us on the website, because you want to probably download this deck and have a look at this and keep this, because there's a lot of good stuff in this in terms of helping you thinking as you go forward in your career. Skills, another big part that underpins everything that we do in the role that we're performing. And these are the top level ones, by the way. These are ones we've pulled out that are specifically just for the analysts. There is a wider list, but for admin, analysts, managers, and directors, but we're just looking at the ones that are the most important. Remember, to be competent in the role, and it's the reason why it comes from a competency framework. These are what considered to be the core that you will need around the analyst kind of level role. So for example, solving problems. Okay, so what's your approach to problem solving? How do you do that? How do you persuade people in order to be able to get the things that you need in order to be able to do your job? Can you facilitate? Could you take a session? Could you run a workshop on risk, for example? All of those kind of skills underpin, again, PMO services, the job that you're doing and what you're offering, the knowledge that you need in order to be able to do that, and then obviously the skill in order to be able to actually deliver through on it. But it's not the only thing, because we have our behaviors as well. And the behaviors are really, really core, but often we don't think about them. Yeah, we could be the best PMO analyst in the world for creating super dashboards, that we've used a lot of insight and knowledge in order to be able to create this. However, if we can't get people using and utilizing that dashboard by using the kind of influencing skills, or perhaps we're not somebody that is wanting to be able to share openly with people or bring people on board or allow feedback on something, the behaviors can really scupper us. It can be that you're doing a job half-heartedly, or that your behavior about people can see about, well, the PMO could help in this space, but actually I don't want to approach that analyst because they never look like they're particularly interested in helping, or they just kind of dash off work and don't look like they're particularly interested in talking to me. These are all the kind of behavioral side of things. It can really elevate that PMO analyst role. You can see some of these things that you probably not really thought about before in terms of what is the kind of behavioral stuff around being a great PMO analyst. The one that I think really makes a big difference right now is the one that's halfway down that list, which is about being curious and looking beyond the obvious. And the reason why I say that is because there's actually quite a lot of change going on in terms of the whole PMO role at the moment, which is the advance of the AI and the project data analytics type stuff that is now available. A lot of organizations have not got a handle on this right now, but they will. And that will mean that the PMO will be using more of this, more and more of these kind of tools, pieces of software, different ways of looking at analytics, different ways of being able to find insights. And to be able to do that right now is to start being curious about this stuff. Because one of the concerns that I think we have is seeing how many people are not engaging in the whole AI stuff at the moment. But we know that organizations, there will come a point, there will be a tipping point, there'll be something that means that actually it starts to come a bit more urgent, that actually we want to start using more of this stuff within the project field. So for me, a good analyst is somebody that is curious about how to do things better. How could we change this process so it works well for people? How could we simplify this particular part of the process? How can we make these kind of gateway reviews quicker, that are more effective? It's that kind of curiosity, I think, really makes people stand out in this field. Okay. Now, when we ask people questions about what they wanted to get out of this, particular session, there is a lot to find out and learn about that kind of analyst role. And of course, that's why we've got the certification course from the House of PMO that is accredited by APMG. It's been out for a few years now, and essentially it's a big chunky course. It's a 5-day course. And the reason why it's 5 days is because the PMO analyst is considered to be the engine of the PMO. It is the role where you are doing the kind of front-facing stuff with the projects and the programs. It's your role that is actually doing, like we said, that kind of service management role where you're looking at improvements in terms of what the PMO is doing. There's a lot there, which is why the course itself is quite chunky. So there's a lot to find out about what the priorities are for the PMO and the organization in terms of, when you first start working in a role like this, it's like, okay, so what's going on with the PMO? Where does it want to be? What does it want to do? What's some of its objectives? What does it want to be doing in the next year's time? What's the roadmap look like? But you is also trying to find that balance between that delivery supporting role and those PMO initiatives that we talked about in terms of getting better at some of the PMO services that we offer. The other thing about the analyst role is that you are a connector and a relationship builder, as well as that analytical side. You are a people person. You have got to be interested in being able to make those relationships with whoever it is that you come across. It can be people on your project teams. It can be the project managers, obviously. It can be the senior management, but it can also be other parts of the business. There's no PMO out there that wouldn't like to be best friends with the finance department. We always need to be friends with the finance department, but it's these kind of relationships you think about in terms of the wider organization. So it's not just you working in PMO, it's that you have a role within that wider organization as well, because of the differences and the balances between business as usual and the change activities. The PMO is that connection point. Yeah. So a lot of stuff there in terms of the kind of role. And You'll also be expected to be an advocate for that PMO. So whatever it is that you're doing in that wider part of the business, it is about being able to promote what it is that the PMO does. And why have I put that on there? Because even today, even though we know that the PMOs make a massive, massive difference to project delivery, and also a massive massive difference between strategy of an organization being realized through projects and programs, even though that is something that for many organizations have got that, they've got it, they understand. So many organizations and people that still don't get what it is that the PMO is there to do. You'll always come across people in your life, there'll be project managers that work with different PMOs over their career. They will have something negative to say about their previous experiences, but it's all about being you as an advocate of that PMO, and that you will always be somebody that will be able to promote the good work that you're doing and getting people buying into what what it is, the good work that you're doing. And Graham has an excellent point, which is they make great connections to the organization's customers and suppliers. Perfect point, yeah, as well. Yes, thank you. I've forgotten about those as well. We have a next course coming up. So if you're interested in that PMO Analyst course, the next one coming up is in November. You can see a code on that screen right now. If you're not sure about whether you want to do it or not, but there's some extra money off there. It's the Analyst Web, lowercase. If you're interested, go and have a look at it. If it's on your radar or on your roadmap for development, it might be a good one for you coming up in November. So people did ask me in this kind of asking questions about this webinar, can we just have a quick look at what's on the course? Yes, you can. It is, like I said, it's a 5-day course. What it's getting into, so P3M, so projects, program, portfolio, and PMO context. You've got to be able to have that in order to be able to understand exactly what it is that you're going to be working within and what for. We talk about those 4 roles, so the analyst role and what's your relationship to all the other ones, and then getting into some of those core competency areas which are related to those PMO services. Yeah, so really quickly, there is a course module around the administration, because people always think, well, we want to get away from doing administration. No, we don't. All projects, programs, and portfolios have administration. And it's up to the PMO in order to be able to, but what kind of administration are we doing around those supporting activities? A big chunk of it is that P3M delivery support. These are all the key areas that you'll get into on that training course. These are all the kind of like top PMO service areas that nearly most organizations, when they're looking have a PMO and a PMO analyst working within them, these are some of those core delivery areas. But what also makes this course very different is that we have this thing called P3M enabling. So this is that kind of stuff we were talking about around like the kind of center of excellence type stuff. PMO analysts are also getting involved in that work where we're putting delivery methods in place. Yeah, if this comes back to those PMO initiatives, it's up to the PMO where we're putting in place the governance frameworks. We're putting in place the assurance frameworks and the reviews and all that kind of stuff. It's a PMO that puts, again, the tools that are used within projects and programs. So these are some of the other elements that we're doing, but are not necessarily to do with delivery support. So again, we get into some of the core areas of the role that you're doing. So that's what it is. That's that course. So let's get back onto the role in terms of tailoring it for you, and tailoring the role for you. Is that there's opportunities there, and there's growth and development to be had in project, program, and portfolio management. It can be a case of that you've worked in projects, you now want to work in a bigger program, more complexity, more risk, or you want to go into that kind of more organizational portfolio level type PMO. Again, that's all about prioritization. It's all about the strategy around resource management. Lots of different kinds of things that you can be learning at those different levels. That's that opportunity for you in terms of you don't need to sit just within projects the entirety of your life in your PMO career. There are other places to go. You can be learning the new technical bits and the new softer skills side of stuff. There's always going to be opportunities to learn new technical aspects, because you've seen whatever an organization wants to do in terms of bettering its project delivery, the chances are it'll be the PMO that makes that happen. It can be a new process, it could be a new method, it could be a new tool, whatever it might be. But again, there's also that softer side of stuff. Classic one at the minute is, where PMOs are trying to help in terms of doing better delivery under this agile banner, whether it be a Scrum method that people are following or they're trying to do things more at an enterprise level. That's the technical side of stuff. However, there's the change management bits, the adoption of these things, getting people to be able to use stuff, getting people to actually engage and want to change. These are some of the other kind of softer side of things that PMOs would be getting involved in. Of yes, we can lay out a lovely method for you. It's only as good as the people that use it. Therefore, we might want to have a look at some change management techniques and how we might want to roll this out. Classic example. There's obviously different PMO career pathways. You can be going straight up the ladder. You can be taking detours left and right.
Oh, but there's a banana flower.
Oh,
sit back.
Just mute that one. So one of the other things you can be doing is looking at specialisms within PMO. So you may want to, actually, I've really enjoyed my time looking at the data analytical side of stuff. Actually, I want to do more in that space. You can go off into that space if that organization obviously is there to support that. It could be that you want to get deeper into risk or into planning or into cost and finance. There's different avenues, different pathways. We've already done a session about career development and career pathways through PMO Learning. That's one of the things that you can find on the training course under the events part. You can see some of the previous things that we've done. So if you're interested in understanding more about the career path and what some of those opportunities might be, go and have a look at the page and download that webinar and have a look at that one. You can also be working with different people, different teams, different departments. Again, you can see that, there's different opportunities depending on where you're placed, how your business works. People, analyst-wise, that have had little secondments out to the finance department for 3 months in order to be able to better understand, then come back into the PMO and then have a better understanding about project finance, business as usual, corporate finance, and how those two things are gelling together. Different things to think about, and it's different opportunities that come to you when you least expect them. It really is like that. It can be a thing you might spot. It could be something that continuously happens around project delivery, something that perhaps keeps coming up in the lessons learned. It's always the same thing. Why aren't we doing something about it? It's because it needs a pair of eyes on it. It needs a volunteer. It needs somebody who perhaps wants to grab it and do something with it. It falls to people within the PMO to kind of be curious, put their hand up. Yeah, I want to have a look at this and see how we can work on this and do things better. That's how it generally can work. So in terms of the challenges of the role, so lots of great opportunity. Where's the challenges? Challenges can be that you're doing a lot with a little. There's a lot of work for the PMO. There's that there's so much that could be done to make things better, to make improvements, but your hands can be tied because there's only so much you can do with the people that you have within that PMO. Yeah, so one of the things that we often talk about is that if you look at the service catalogue, so when you go on that course, and you can buy that textbook, by the way, yourself, the PMO service catalogue is big. And people are like, no way you're going to be able to deliver all those services. And of course you can't, because you don't have enough people to be able to do that. So you're only picking the services that the organization really, really needs, can't live without. And if you have spare resource to do some of the other nice to haves, that's when you can start to do some other things and bring other things into it. That's the problem sometimes with a role, is that you're itching to sort out a problem, but you just don't have enough resource and enough time to be able to do that. So it's a challenge of the role. If you're working at that kind of project program level, you're often spread across different projects. You might be providing just a couple of services per project. You can get frustrated about the fact that you can see that project needs more, but for whatever reason, you're not being resourced to provide that service. So again, you can be spread thinly over projects, but you can also imagine that you might be switching and changing in terms of your working week, days, hours, across different projects. Again, not for everyone, but it can be a difficult task to manage. You're obviously going to get tight and conflicting deadlines. That's project management. It's always going to be the case. With the PMO, it can sometimes be that you're trying to find the balance between two strong characters. So senior management, the sponsor perhaps, or the project manager. Where's your alliances here? Who are you wanting to be able to work with best? Who do you do the job for first? All of those kind of things can make the job, again, interesting, difficult, problematic. That's where the kind of behavioral skills come into play in order to be able to manage this kind of stuff. But it goes on. It's something that happens all the time. Some specialist skills can take the formal training and lots of on-job practice. Yeah. So some of the things that you may find that you're interested in, project data analytics, a classic one right now at the moment that a lot of people are kind of struggling with. In do we go down that road, or do we recruit in somebody that has this? But actually we need to have some skills around this area. So again, there's some specialist skills that will take some formal training and lots of time in order to be able to get up to speed on the job. And then we've got the frustrations of managing those two sides. And I've kind of said it with the project manager and that sponsor. But imagine if you've got the project team, you're well deep into, there's a delivery, you're just about to go live in a week's time, if it's all hands on deck. And then you've got the senior management here wanting to know what's going on. It's can be a real frustration and a conflict of interest sometimes in terms of where you are and what it is that you're able to provide in terms of support for both of your customers. So getting into the role, a smooth start. You're joining an existing PMO, you want to find out what that analyst role is really about. Yeah, so we've got the job advert, we've got the job profile, whatever it might be, but actually, what's it really like? Because it'll be, you want the warts and all. Yeah, you've had the nice rosy view of the world kind of picture of it. What's it really like? So actually you spend quite a lot of your time in that kind of early days getting to really understand what's going on. And you spend a lot of the time trying to work out who's who, which is why I think a lot of the time in this particular role, certainly when I was recruiting for PMO Analysts, I would say that it'd take about 6 months from starting that job to actually feeling like you've got a real handle on what's going on and who's doing what and who to talk to about X and Y, all of that kind of stuff. So early days, it can feel like it's going on for a while, that you don't feel like you got your feet under the table just yet. It's also going to understand the expectations of the organisation of that PMO. You get a better feel for actually how that PMO is actually viewed, what people really think about that PMO, both its good points and its bad. And you get to find, get that feel for actually, is this going to be a relatively easy ask from a PMO point of view, or actually are we going to have to really work hard to get people on board to come with us as we maybe introduce new services or, the kind of work that we're doing. You also find that kind of cadence. Every organization has it. Everybody has, what's the rhythm to it? So is there a timesheet process that, is every Friday things need to happen? Is there a reporting process that needs to happen at a certain time? Are there certain steering committee meetings at certain times? Are there certain customer events? Whatever it might be, this is about what happens and when it happens, what your role is within it, because you'll be doing reporting, you'll be giving information to people, all of that kind of stuff. It's getting into like an understanding what the rhythm of the place is. Also understanding what your measures are is also really good to understand early in your role. And when you're starting this role, you have a better idea about what it is that you need to be thinking about in order to be able to hit in terms of those measures. Sometimes organizations don't have measures for individuals like this at this level. It's the project managers that tend to get measures in terms of delivering on time, on budget and all that kind of stuff. But understanding what measures you may have from a PMO point of view, always a good question to ask to find out exactly what people understand measures to be in your PMO world. And then, of course, when you first start working in any way, is understanding the nuances of that project culture. Every organization has them, just like a cadence and a delivery and a rhythm to what's going on. There's always a culture of politics, a culture of how things get done around here. Again, common stuff. But I think what's interesting is that when you first start working in a PMO role, you're getting used to working, perhaps if it's a new organization as well, you're getting used to working and understanding what the organization's like, as well as what the project culture's like, and sometimes they can be at odds, sometimes they can be slightly different. It's just another layer of the organization that you kind of need to understand about. So a smooth start and carry on. One of the things that can help is getting involved in a community of practice. So when you start in an organization, certainly a lot of organizations that are doing good project delivery and are quite mature in their approach to project management will have a community of practice. And those community of practices tend to be kind of like lunch and learn sessions at lunchtime to come along and listen to how people might be doing a certain thing, or it might be a kind of technical forum about how people are doing certain things on certain projects. It gives you an idea and gives you a feel for not only what's going on in projects, gives you an idea about where maybe some of the things are coming down the line that you may need to know about from a PMO point of view. It can help you in terms of understanding where I might need to do some development myself. It's great for a networking point of view, and so on. Yeah, it's try and find one if there is one. Understand how self-development works and the expectations around it within the organization as well. Is there an expectation that you should be doing self-development as you go along? Do we use kind of like e-learning or kind of module type things on a website somewhere, whatever it might be? What's the expectation? Yeah. So what is it that you're expected to do to keep developing in your role and get an understanding about that when you first start? Get that organization chart out and work out who's the politics, who knows who's what, where's the grievances are, who are best mates, who plays golf on a weekend with whoever. All of that stuff is going to be really useful for you as you're navigating your way through the world of PMO and project management. You've also got to work out what the appetite might be for change and improvement. We talked before about, you get into a role of doing a PMO analyst, and certainly if you're expected to be taking on one of the service areas, what is that appetite for change then? Because actually, if you do see something that needs change and needs improvement, what's the appetite for it? Are they an organization that's going to be quite resistant to it? Project teams are quite resistant to any kind of interference in their world. But again, trying to understand this is about the environment that you're working within, and what the feel is for this kind of stuff will have an impact and a bearing on the way that you may be approaching things. We also want you to have a think about what you want to be known for. Yeah, so when you're starting out in a PMO analyst role, well, what is it that you'd like to be known for? Because people within PMOs, the project teams, the project managers, senior management, they get to know that actually, if you want something doing on X, go and speak to John over there, because actually he's really great at sorting out that kind of stuff. Is there something that you want to be known for? If you want to be a great PMO analyst, known for something, have a think about it. Have a think about where there might be some areas within that role that you really love, you really excel at, or you'd want to get to that point where you do really love it and really excel it. But just again, just thinking about the role as you're coming into it. So to make a lasting impression is obviously about gaining that essential knowledge, the understanding to undertake that role. So we talked today about PMO services, the competency areas, knowledge, skills, behaviours, so understanding what those kind of things are. You demonstrate a degree of understanding around your projects, your programs, your portfolios, and your PMOs. That's where the learning comes in. It doesn't have to be formal learning. It can be learning through different forums. It can be going to listening to webinars. It can go into conferences, whatever it might be. It's just deepening the knowledge of what it is that you're doing. What are PMOs capable of? What are other people doing out there in the PMO world with their PMOs that we could potentially be using in ours, but I could be potentially doing in my role? Yeah. So it's just about being able to think about where you're going to get those kind of insights from. Being able to understand and articulate the core roles and responsibilities of a PMO analyst are key. People ask you, what is it that you do? You should be ready. This is what I do. This is a difference that I make to projects, to programs, to portfolios, to our organizations, to our PMO. Think about what it is that you want to be able to say when people ask about what it is that you do. You'll learn about those essential competencies, knowledge, skills, and behaviors, as we said before, and discover the kind of PMO services that are offered and how they are created and delivered by PMO analysts, because those are the people that do create them and they do improve them and do deliver them. So again, it's not just about that delivery support role. It is about being able to improve what the PMO is doing for that organization, and that will be a role that falls to you. And of course, continuing your professional and personal development, because things are always changing. You know, there is never a time when something won't be coming down the line which will impact the way that you do your job. Did a session the other day, which was somebody talking about their perfect PMO. It was a PMO manager. They set up the perfect PMO. Everybody was so in tune. PMO analysts working really well, delivering brilliant services. The delivery organization, it was just everything falling into pieces. However, a new director at the top end of the business came in and said, I want to scrap that. I want to do it in a different way. You never know. You never know what is going to happen in the whole kind of project management space, because organizations are still trying to find the best ways to deliver projects more successfully, because there's too many that still fail, that still overrun, that cost too much and all that kind of stuff. So our job is never going to be, you know, something that stands still and you'll be, you know, forever doing that job in its same form year in, year out. So that is the PMO analyst role. And I just want to just talk to you and just finish off by saying, you know, there are some courses coming up, some of the stuff we've already talked about. Perhaps you're listening to this and that you're, you know, finding that actually I'm probably more at that kind of wanting to find out. I've been an analyst for a while. I'm looking to be a manager in my career. You might want to look at the essentials for PMO managers. These essentials courses are for people that are either new into the role or been in the role for about 2 years. But not for people that have been in the role for longer than that. Yeah, these are for, you know, it's kind of the essentials you need to know and do in these roles. And of course, you can see the P3O, which we also mentioned earlier on in the session. So I know I have just streamed, I've just gone gung-ho for this. We've got 3 minutes left of the hour. I know there's a lot of information. We have recorded this session. It will be available later on the website. And also, if you joined up before, I showed you the kind of, you know, joiners on the website, please do that. You'll make sure that you'll get it into your inbox if you want to look at it in more detail. And of course, we're here to help. But one of the things that I've kind of thrown at you here at the moment, I'm sure you've got 101 questions later when it might become more burning. So for example, you might find that actually I've got some budget now for some training. Do I do P3O or do I do the essentials? Which is the best one to do? Actually, listening to this now, you could be a manager that's thinking we could really do with some training for our team around benefits management. For example, get in touch, talk to us. There are many, many things we can do in order to help you around your professional development around the whole PMO space. Yeah, we look forward to chatting with you later. So if there's no other questions, let's say thank you very much for your patience. Hopefully you've enjoyed, it's been a good use of your lunch hour, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.